My mother once told me, straight-faced, that I was nothing but a burden. I laughed it off back then, nervously, but something in her eyes told me she meant every word. From the outside, we looked like a perfect mother-daughter duo. But behind those closed doors, I was invisible until I was needed, disposable when I wasn't. Years later, she came knocking, eyes swollen, trembling. "Please, I have nowhere else to go." If you think I slammed the door in her face, you're wrong. But if you think I welcomed her with open arms, you're even more wrong. What I did next changed everything. It was my 12th birthday. The backyard had been decorated with pastel balloons, fold-out tables lined with floral tablecloths, and a chocolate cake that had my name spelled in pink icing. "To my beautiful Rachel," my mother announced to the guests, her voice sweet like honey. She pulled me into an embrace so tight it nearly cracked my ribs, and everyone clapped. "What a lucky girl," someone said. "Such a perfect little family," another whispered. My mother leaned in close, still smiling for the crowd. Her lips grazed my ear. "Don't do anything to embarrass me," she hissed. The air chilled. I remember looking around at the faces, neighbors, church friends, her co-workers from the school, all of them blind to the shift in her tone. They saw her kiss my forehead and thought it was affection. I knew better. That kiss was a warning. Stay in line. From the outside, we were picturesque, a single mother raising a daughter on her own. We wore matching Sunday dresses, baked cookies together for bake sales, and volunteered at shelters during the holidays. Everyone adored her. She won Teacher of the Year twice. But in our quiet house on Sycamore Lane, affection came with terms and conditions. If I got an A, she would say, "See? You're not completely useless." If I got a B, the silent treatment would stretch for days. I wasn't allowed to cry. It made me look weak. I wasn't allowed to speak unless spoken to, unless it was in front of others, where she insisted I be her little sunshine. I played the role well. I learned how to smile on command, how to say just the right thing to make her proud in public. But behind closed doors, I was shrinking. The girl I was trying to be didn't exist. And the girl I truly was, quiet, artistic, introspective, had no place in our home. I was 13 when I fainted in gym class. I hadn't eaten breakfast or dinner the night before. I woke up in the nurse's office with a cold compress on my forehead and my mother standing over me, arms crossed. "What did you do now?" she said, voice sharp and low. "Everyone was watching. You humiliated me." I blinked, still dizzy. I tried to sit up. She pushed the blanket off my lap and handed me my backpack. "Let's go." That night, I found the fridge nearly empty. Again. She had bought herself a new handbag, the receipt still on the counter. It cost more than our rent. At 16, I was awarded a prestigious scholarship for art, my one act of rebellion, applying without her permission. When the check came, I cried with joy. I told her I wanted to study design. She laughed. "You think that's a real career?" "No, you're going to nursing school, something useful." I tried to argue. She held up the check. "This? I'll hold on to it. You're not ready to manage money." Weeks later, I found that same check deposited into her account, and a new coat in her closet, leather, red, tags still on. One night, I was digging through our old photo albums for a class project. I found a picture of my parents at their wedding, something I had never seen before. My father, whose name was never spoken, was smiling wide. My mother had cut a jagged line through his face. I asked her about it. "He left us," she said, without even looking at the photo. "He doesn't deserve to be remembered." That same night, my phone rang, an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Rachel?" The voice was male, familiar somehow. "Who is this?" "I'm Daniel, your brother." My breath caught. "You need to know something," he said. "You can't trust her, not entirely." The call ended before I could ask anything else. I stood there in the hallway, holding the photo in one hand, the phone in the other. My father's erased face stared back at me through the torn print. My mother's voice echoed in my head, her rules, her punishments, her warnings. My stomach twisted. Something was unraveling. I just didn't know how deep it went. I never wanted to be a nurse. From the time I could hold a pencil, I was sketching people, buildings, scenes I saw in dreams. Art made me feel real, but according to my mother, drawing is for people with trust funds, not single mothers and their charity case daughters. She told me I'd go into nursing. "It's stable," she said. "You'll always have a job. Besides, with your grades, it'd be selfish not to." I didn't have the words then, but something about that stuck with me. I wasn't choosing a career. I was being conscripted into her life plan. So I did what I always did. I nodded, I enrolled, I smiled, at least on paper. At night, I drew in secret. It was a rainy afternoon when I first accessed her email. I wasn't snooping, not at first. Her laptop was open. The screen had gone black, but I could see the faint glow of unread messages. Something tugged at me. A whisper, maybe intuition. I clicked. Most of the emails were benign. School board updates, PTA newsletters, discount codes. Then I saw the subject line, Annual Confirmation Behavioral Disability Claim. My stomach flipped. The email was from an insurance company thanking her for providing documentation on Rachel Morgan's chronic psychological condition. Attached were PDFs, one of which included a medical diagnosis of generalized anxiety and trauma-induced dissociation. I hadn't been to a therapist in years. The last time I tried, she canceled the appointment before we even arrived. There were billing records, payments she'd received, thousands of dollars. I felt sick. The rest of the night blurred. I couldn't confront her, not then. So I printed everything and hid it under the floorboard in my closet, right beneath my sketchbook. The next morning, she made pancakes. She never made pancakes. I stared at her across the table, watching her sip orange juice, compliment the weather, comment on my hair. It was surreal. The woman committing insurance fraud under my name was humming to a country song while flipping bacon. I remember thinking, maybe she's not just manipulative. Maybe she's truly sick. And then I questioned myself for thinking it. Wasn't that the cycle? Question, doubt, guilt, silence. That week, my art professor pulled me aside. He asked why I hadn't submitted my portfolio for the design school competition. I told him I wasn't going. My mom says it's not a real future. His eyes softened. Whose future are you living? I didn't have an answer. 2 nights later, I received a text from an unknown number. No name, just a sentence. Be careful. She did this to someone else before. I froze. My fingers trembled as I replied, "Who is this?" No response. I stared at the screen for hours. Something in me snapped, not violently, but permanently. I started digging, through dusty boxes in the attic, old photo albums, letters, bills. That's when I found it. A birth certificate tucked inside a medical envelope. Name, Hannah Morgan. Mother, Linda Morgan. Father, unknown. I had no sister. At least that's what I was always told. The hospital records said otherwise. Hannah had been admitted to a psychiatric facility at the age of 11. No discharge date. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I confronted her. Who is Hannah? The shift in her face was microscopic, half a blink too long, a twitch at the corner of her mouth. Then, denial. You've been going through my things. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? I said. You lied to me my entire life. She was a mistake, she snapped. I gave her up for her own good. For her good or yours? That was the last time we spoke civilly. 2 days later was my high school graduation. I didn't want her there, but she insisted, said it would look bad if she didn't attend. It was raining again. I came home late after the ceremony, diploma damp, mascara smudged from crying. I opened the front door and froze. My suitcase was on the floor. She stood at the top of the stairs. You stole from me, she said, her voice sharp, cold. Get out! What are you talking about? The check, my wallet. You've been taking things. Don't lie to me. I didn't leave. Now. You're not welcome here anymore. Lightning cracked outside. I stood in the doorway, the hem of my dress soaked through, my heart thudding against my ribs. She didn't flinch. She didn't even look away. I walked out with one bag, a phone on 10% battery, and nowhere to go. Down the street, the storm opened up. I didn't look back. I spent the summer on sofas and spare mattresses, in basements that smelled like wet carpet, in rooms where friends' parents whispered behind closed doors. "She seems sweet," they'd say, "but where's her mother?" I picked up odd jobs, cleaning, dishwashing, tutoring spoiled kids who rolled their eyes at every sentence. It was humiliating, but I smiled. I said thank you. I scraped together enough to eat dollar meals and keep my phone barely functional. I drew in the corners of napkins, receipts, notebook margins, things I never finished. One night, while scraping burnt cheese off a baking sheet at a pizza joint, my phone buzzed. The screen was cracked, but the name glowed clear. Daniel. I stepped outside into the alley. The city smelled like oil and rain. "Hey," I whispered. "You need to see this," he said, "but only if you're ready." He sent the video. I sat on the curb and pressed play. It was grainy footage, probably from an old voice recorder. My mother's voice rang through, clear, unfiltered, ugly. "I don't care what she does. I don't need her to succeed. I just need her to exist so I can keep collecting the damn money." The sentence hit like a punch to the sternum. I watched it again and again. My chest caved in. My hands went numb. I wasn't a daughter. I was a strategy. I called Daniel, but he didn't pick up, so I sat there under the broken streetlight, pizza grease on my apron, wondering how long it had been this way. Since birth? Since I started talking? Since I became smart enough to notice? That night, I dreamt of my father. He was sitting at a table I didn't recognize, head in his hands. He looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw pain in his eyes, not like the sadness people show in sympathy cards, but the kind that curdles from the inside out. I woke up crying. The next day, I took the bus across town to the courthouse archives. I told the clerk I was researching for a school project. It wasn't entirely a lie. I requested death records from 17 years ago. It took an hour to find the file. My father didn't die in a car accident. He jumped off a bridge. The police report was short but detailed. He had left no note, only a voicemail on a co-worker's phone. One sentence stood out. "She said if I leave, she'll take Rachel, and I'll never see her again." I dropped the file. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The words blurred, then burned into clarity. My mother had threatened him. I left the courthouse in a haze. The sun was too bright. The world too sharp. I thought about all the times she'd said he abandoned us, that he was weak, that I should be grateful she stayed. She stayed to collect. The days blurred after that. I stopped going to work. I stopped eating. I couldn't sleep unless I was exhausted to the point of collapse. My body became something I carried, not lived in. I found myself on a bridge one night, not the same one, but high enough. The city looked so small from up there. People rushing, cars honking, neon signs flickering over fast food chains and pawn shops. I thought, maybe if I let go, I'll float for a second before the end. Maybe it'll be quiet. I unwrapped the sandwich I'd saved from earlier. Half-eaten, cold, damp. I didn't even know why I brought it. Then I heard a voice. "Are you gonna eat that?" I turned. A little girl stood a few feet away. So small, so dirty. Hair matted, cheeks hollow. I blinked. "What?" she pointed. "The sandwich. I'm starving." I stared at her, then at the sandwich, then back. "Here," I said, handing it to her. She took it gently, like it was treasure. As she bit into it, she looked up at me with wide, grateful eyes. "You're an angel, aren't you?" she whispered. Something cracked inside me. I sat down on the ground, legs shaking. "No," I said, "I'm really not." But she smiled anyway. I watched her walk away into the night, disappearing around a corner like a phantom. Maybe she was real. Maybe she wasn't. But she saved me. She reminded me I wasn't just pain. I wasn't just survival. I could still give. I could still matter. Recovery didn't begin with hope. It began with boredom, with routine, with dragging myself to a free support group at a local community center because I didn't know where else to go. The first time I spoke, my voice cracked halfway through a sentence, and I spent the rest of the meeting silently tracing the peeling paint on the table with my thumb. But I went back the next week, and the one after that. I started reading. The first book someone handed me was The Body Keeps the Score. I devoured it in 2 days, underlining sentences until my pen dried out. For the first time, someone put words to the fog I'd been living in. Trauma wasn't weakness. It wasn't my fault. It was survival, coded into my body. I wasn't crazy. I was conditioned. That alone changed everything. I took long walks. I ate oatmeal again. I washed my sheets. Simple things, but they added up. I journaled until my wrists ached. Some days I slipped, shut myself in a dark room for hours, ignoring calls, refusing food. But I always came back to the meetings. The people there didn't fix me. They didn't need to. They just listened, and that was more than I'd ever had. Then, one Thursday evening, she walked in. Carla. I hadn't seen her since we were 10. We used to sit together at lunch, trade stickers, practice handwriting on each other's arms. One day she just disappeared. I was told she moved. But here she was, older, stronger, her eyes still the same stormy gray. We locked eyes. "Rachel?" she whispered. I nodded. After the meeting, we sat on the curb outside, paper cups of lukewarm tea in hand. "I always wondered what happened to you," she said. "You moved away." She looked down. "That's what they told you?" I frowned. "Didn't you?" She shook her head. "Your mom. She blamed me for something. Said I stole her ring. I didn't even know she had one. She told the school I was violent. I was 10. The principal believed her. My parents got scared, pulled me out, said we had to start over somewhere else." I stared at her, stunned. "Why would she?" "She caught me teaching you how to draw people." That night, I remembered it all. The laughter, the sketchbook, the sudden silence after Carla vanished, the way my mother refused to let me talk about her. "That girl's trouble," she'd said. "Forget her." Carla's voice broke the memory. "She pushed me, Rachel, down the stairs, said I was clumsy. But she looked me in the eyes when she did it. Cold, like she wanted me to break. I couldn't breathe. The puzzle pieces fell too fast to catch. Hannah, my forgotten sister, my father's death, the stolen scholarship money, the forged medical records, now Carla. My mother was a storm, and I had mistaken it for weather. The rage hit like fire through frozen limbs. I stood up. "I need to take her down." Carla smiled. "I'll help." We started small. I bought a second-hand mic and recorded myself talking one night. Not yelling, not crying, just telling the truth. "Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm the daughter of a narcissist. For years I thought I was crazy, but I wasn't. I was controlled. I posted the episode on a podcast forum. It got 10 plays, then 100, then 10,000. I talked about the emails, the insurance fraud, the day I got kicked out. I shared stories, mine, and with permission, Carla's. I gave people a name for what they'd felt all their lives. Invisible abuse. Emails flooded in. I thought I was alone. This is my story, too. My mother did the same. I cried every night for a week, not from pain, from finally being heard. Carla and I created a spreadsheet, evidence, witnesses, a timeline. Daniel found old photos, receipts, even his own childhood journal. Together, we pieced together decades of damage. I wrote to the Board of Education, to the insurance company, to the foundation that had awarded my scholarship. Every letter was factual, calm, documented. It was hard. Sometimes I wanted to stop, to crawl back into the silence I knew. But then I'd get another message. "My daughter listened to your story. She left her abusive boyfriend." Or, "I filed for emancipation after your podcast." One night, I was walking home from the studio Carla helped me rent when I saw a poster on a community board, Daughters of Narcissists Support Circle, every Friday. I hadn't started it. Someone else had. I stood there, staring at the flyer, the edges curling in the wind. My hands trembled. This was bigger than me now, but I wasn't afraid. I hadn't heard from her in almost 2 years. By then, the podcast had gone international. The inbox was a river of confessions, gratitude, pain. I spoke at colleges, conferences, People called me brave, but I didn't feel brave. I felt unfinished. Then one evening, I opened the door and there she was, my mother. She looked nothing like the woman I remembered, no polished curls, no fitted cardigans. Her face was drawn, lips cracked, eyes sunken like she hadn't slept in days. "I need your help," she whispered. She didn't ask how I was, didn't apologize. She just stood there trembling, clutching her purse like it held her last defense. "I lost everything," she said. "He left me, took the house. I have nowhere to go." I stepped aside, not out of pity, but precision. I wanted her to see what boundaries looked like. I sat her on the couch and listened, arms crossed, body still. She wept, or tried to. Her tears came in short, dry gasps, like someone acting grief they didn't fully believe in. "I need your forgiveness," she said, voice cracking. "I miss you." "I don't think you do," I said, "but I'll make you an offer." Her eyes lit up. "You'll come on a live interview with me, local channel, nothing scripted. You tell the truth. You say exactly what you did and who you did it to." She blinked. "What?" "I'm giving you a stage. Use it to be honest. One time." Silence stretched between us like glass. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Fine." The next morning we met at the station. I had contacted a small local news show known for its community outreach. They agreed to air the interview under the theme, Cycles of Healing. The host was neutral, calm, a therapist herself. Cameras rolled. At first, my mother played along. She talked about mistakes, about being too strict, about expecting too much. Then she pivoted. Rachel always had issues, she said, glancing sideways at me. Emotional problems. I did what I could. I sat still. She smiled. She was a troubled child, but I still loved her. I could feel the shift. The host's brow furrowed. The energy in the room tightened. Then she said it. "I mean, would a real mother throw her child out without reason? Rachel wasn't honest about everything, were you, dear?" I took a breath and smiled. "Actually," I said, turning to the camera, "thank you for giving me the perfect moment." I pulled out my phone and hit a button. Across my social platforms, the live stream began. Emails, voice recordings, documents, testimonies, clips of my mother's own words, the insurance fraud, the accusations, the medical files, the truth. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. I simply narrated the timeline, one fact after another, while my mother sat beside me, mouth slowly falling open. The anchor didn't stop me. The station didn't cut the feed. When I was done, I looked her in the eye. "You wanted a platform," I said. "So I gave you one." That night, my phone exploded. Journalists reached out, lawyers, advocates, survivors, but most importantly, so did organizations that had once ignored me. The Scholarship Foundation launched an internal review. The Board of Education opened an investigation, and the insurance company? They filed charges. Weeks later, my mother was served legal papers on 3 counts of fraud and defamation. One by one, old acquaintances came forward, people she'd used, manipulated, harmed. Then came the psychiatric evaluation. A mental health tribunal declared her a danger to vulnerable individuals. They labeled her with narcissistic personality disorder with malignant traits. She was ordered to undergo mandatory psychological treatment and barred from working in any position involving minors or financial handling. My extended family fractured. Aunts who once called me dramatic wrote to apologize. One cousin admitted, "We always suspected something, but she was so convincing." I didn't respond, not out of spite, but because I didn't need to. One morning, I received an invitation. TEDx. Topic: Healing from Parental Betrayal. At first, I hesitated. What more was there to say? Then I remembered that girl on the bridge, the sandwich, the eyes. I stood on that red circle in front of hundreds. I told the story, not just of pain, but of transformation. I spoke not as a victim, but as someone who had taken everything broken and turned it into something sharp, clear, and true. People cried. People stood. Afterward, a woman approached me. "My daughter's in foster care," she said, trembling. "I want to get her back, but I need help becoming someone who deserves her. I took her hand. That's where it starts, I said. I walked off stage lighter than I had ever felt. Healing is not a straight line. It loops, stutters, slips, surges. But with time, the surges become stronger than the slips. A year after the TED Talk, I stood at the front of a sunlit community center, addressing a circle of women, some clutching tissues, others holding hands with strangers they had just met. My title said Trauma Recovery Advocate. It wasn't something I planned. It was something that happened when enough people said, I need help. And I found myself saying, I know what that feels like. We didn't just talk about survival. We talked about rebuilding, about the messy beauty of learning to trust again, about giving names to wounds we weren't allowed to speak of as children. The podcast continued, but it evolved. I invited guests, therapists, survivors, authors. The episodes became less about my past and more about what others could learn from theirs. I published a book, not a memoir exactly, more like a roadmap for climbing out of invisible cages. On a fall afternoon in Portland during a book signing, a girl about 11 years old approached my table. She had thick, curly brown hair and eyes that didn't quite match, one hazel, one almost green. She held my book to her chest like a secret. Can you sign it? She whispered. I smiled. Of course. She leaned in as I took her book. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You're the reason I didn't jump last year. My mom listens to your podcast. She told me I'm not crazy, that it's okay to talk. I froze. Your mom listens? She nodded. She's my foster mom, my real mom. She left when I was a baby. Her name was May. She lived 2 towns over. Her foster mom ran a trauma-informed household. They painted their feelings on weekends. They had quiet hour after school. She said it felt like safety, even if she didn't fully know what that meant yet. We took a photo together. I signed her book with a note. You are never too much. You are exactly enough. Later that night, I called Daniel. I told him about May. He went silent for a long time. I think I found Hannah, he said finally. It took months to verify. Paper trails were tangled. Names changed. But in the end, it was true. May was Hannah's daughter, my sister's daughter. The child born in silence, passed through systems, left with no one to claim her. The girl who stood before me that afternoon wasn't just a fan. She was family. Life has strange poetry. May and I met again, this time with Daniel present. We didn't tell her everything, not yet, but we shared photos of Hannah, what little we had. May clutched them like treasure. She looks like me, she said. Yes, I said. She really does. Months passed. One spring morning, I stood in front of a dilapidated house with peeling paint and a crumbling porch, my childhood home. It was up for sale, bank-owned, listed under Fixer-Upper. I bought it. People asked me why. Why would you go back there? But I wasn't going back. I was reclaiming. We gutted the insides, tore out stained carpet, knocked down walls, let sunlight flood rooms that had once held so much darkness. I turned the guest room into an art studio. The master bedroom became a communal library. The garage, once a place of cold silences, was converted into a healing circle space. We called it the Phoenix House, a shelter, a sanctuary, a starting point. Women came, some fleeing partners, others families. Some just needed a place to be alone without being abandoned. We offered art therapy, trauma support, legal guidance. But more than that, we offered witness. We said, we see you, we believe you. On the hallway wall, I hung a single painting, my first ever sketch, recovered from a broken box in the attic. It was a little girl holding a balloon, half floating, half tethered by a string tied to her ankle. For years, I thought it was a picture of me stuck. Now, I saw it as a girl learning to fly. I never forgave my mother. Not in the fairy tale sense. But I stopped carrying her in every room I walked into. That, to me, was more powerful. The day the Phoenix House held its first open mic night, I stood at the front steps, watching the crowd gather. Carla was there, with her wife. Daniel brought his fiancée. May stood beside me, now 15, tall and defiant and kind. Someone asked if I would speak. I walked up slowly, took the mic. I looked out over the faces, some smiling, some scarred, some still in hiding. My mother once said I was a burden, I began. But here's the truth I've learned. One scar, one breath, one rising day at a time. I paused. I wasn't the burden. I was the blessing she never deserved.